Beware, keep alert and pray, for you do not know when the time will come. What I say to you, I say to all, keep awake. This is the first Sunday of Advent in the Christian liturgical calendar. It is a time of waiting and watching, of holding out hope in dark times. Human beings are curious creatures. We are so much alike that we spend an inordinate amount of time exploring and exerting all of the ways that we are different from one another. We are social creatures created and evolved to live in communities, but on scales both macro and micro, we struggle for individual identity and exceptionalism. We are just like everyone else, but special. And so in communities and cultures, small and large, all over the northern hemisphere of this planet, humans through the ages have developed a series of rituals to mark the time of year when the nights are longest, when the temperatures are chill, and when the world around us is dormant or seemingly dead. We create rituals and legends to coax and celebrate the light's return. Ancient Hebrews developed a ritual around the miracle of light that became Hanukkah. Earth-based pagans watched the moon and stars dance in the night sky and marked the winter solstice as the turning point between the seasons of death and birth, of harvest and planting. Greek and Roman mythology each had their own complex and elaborate stories about this time of year and the turning of the seasons. In Christianity, a relative newcomer in the historical realm of religion, co-opted many of these ancient practices and wove together the legend of a miraculous star that appeared in the darkest night, bringing hope to a very dark world. Hope and faith are noble and honorable virtues, but they are best when they are based in solid preparation. I can have faith in democracy, but my chances of having democracy operate in accordance with my values are increased in direct proportion to my own attentiveness and involvement with that democracy. I have faith that our emergency preparedness plan will work, but that faith can be a solid thing upon which to build if we plan and practice and prepare. In a moment, we will have our emergency drill. Guests, just come along for the ride. It won't be long. It's wet out. We won't be outside for long. This plan was developed in 2015 by the safety team, and a variety of people have been trained as volunteers. When the alarm sounds and the drill begins, please follow the instructions of those who move into position to help facilitate the building evacuation. Unitarian Universalists tend to be overachievers and extra helpers. This is not the time to get creative or helpful or heroic. This is not the time to argue about how things could go more smoothly or how this or that might be more effective. If you have ideas about that, I encourage you to join the safety team and share them there. This is the time to appreciate that others have the training to help and let them do it. The best way to be helpful in an emergency is not to add to the chaos. Follow the instructions of the volunteer monitors. Trust that they are trained volunteers and they are downstairs as well with the children who will help them. We will evacuate the sanctuary according to the instructions of the monitors. We will assemble outside by the children's play area, and we will not stay there for long because cold and wet. When the drill is over, we will return to the building with the children downstairs and the adults upstairs. I will finish my sermon, offer a prayer, and we will sing together as we normally do. Now let us begin the drill. Jeff will sound the alarm, and it will be very exciting. It's best not to leave a lit flame in the building during a fire drill. Okay. So some traditions call for a blast of excitement to mark the turnings of the seasons. Others observe this time in contemplation and prayer. People wait in a variety of ways. And that variety often has much to do with what they expect at the end of that waiting. What we wait for, whether we look forward to it with eager anticipation or with fear and dread, will determine what the waiting is like for us. Here in the 21st century in the United States, we are facing a time of darkness and fear. We wait, hoping for the return of the sun, and with it a renewal of life for the planet and humanity, centuries distant from the agrarian cultures that created these legends and rituals. Our nation's government seems to be locked into a bizarre and toxic death spiral of greed and indifference to the needs of the vulnerable. In the wee hours of Saturday morning, the United States Senate voted to pass a tax bill that is abhorrent and antithetical to every kind of moral principle and value that our Constitution espouses. It is a document of abject cruelty and sadism towards those who have less power and influence than the financial elites of our nation, assembled in secret by the jackals who will benefit from the carcasses of those who will perish in its wake, and forced through in a false rush before the governed could get a look at what it was that the governors were about to do to them, to us. Bishop William Barber of the Moral Monday movement tweeted this weekend a passage from the Hebrew prophet Isaiah. Woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees to deprive the poor of their rights and withhold justice from the oppressed of my people, making widows their prey and robbing the fatherless. We wait for the return of the sun, in this case represented by democracy, and a return to a democratic process that is not perverted by monetary greed and unchecked appetites for power. Yes, we wait for the change of the season, that midwinter shift from night to morning. Theodore Parker told us that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Sages since his time have cautioned us that the moral arc of the universe does not bend on its own. It requires us to help bend that arc. So my question this morning, in this time of waiting, in this time of fear and darkness, is this: what is it we are waiting for? Are we waiting for an alarm to go off to let us know that there is an emergency that threatens the safety of us and our neighbors? Not every dangerous situation brings with it alarm bells or sirens. We may not have a bright flare or a blinking light to show us the way toward justice. If we wait for that kind of a sign, we may miss the revolution. So let me change the inflection. What are we waiting for? What must happen for us to take action? Are we waiting for the Affordable Care Act to be gutted? Because that just happened. Are we waiting for Roe versus Wade to be undermined by a law that grants citizenship to fetuses? Because that happened too. Are we waiting for other women to come forward to tell their stories of harassment and abuse? Are we waiting for a dictator to take office? Are we waiting for the oceans to warm? For media outlets to be bought or taken over by the government for the streets to be filled with homeless children. What are we waiting for? Fred Rogers advised children to look for the helpers during a time of crisis or emergency. It could well be that this is our turn to be the helpers. It is our turn to revive democracy before it is fatally strangled. Gil Scott Heron penned the famous poem song, "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." He wrote, "We'd like to do a poem for you called 'The Revolution Will Not Be Televised,' primarily because it won't be. You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials, because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be live." Now, in our time, the revolution may be live streamed on Facebook, but it will not be provided like delivery pizza for mass consumption. It will be performed live by people who need our help, people like you and me. Beware, keep alert and pray, for you do not know when the time will come, Mark wrote in his gospel. The revolution will not be televised. It will be live. We must be prepared. We must plan and drill and participate. And we must act. So I ask you again in Advent, what is it that we are waiting for? The time to act is now. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be live. May we have the strength to make it so and win. Blessed be and amen. Amen.